chapter 6. And David again gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose, and went all the people that were with him from Baal, Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, whereupon is called the name, even the name of the Lord of hosts, that sitteth upon the cherubim. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was in the hill, with the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord with all manner of instruments made of cypress wood, with harps, and with psalteries, and with timbrels, and with sistra, and with cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error. And there he died by the ark of God. And David was displeased, because the Lord had broken forth upon Uzzah. That place was called Perez Uzzah unto this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, How shall the ark of the Lord come unto me? So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom that the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his house. And it was told King David, saying, The Lord hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom, and all that pertaineth unto him, because of the ark of God. And David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with joy. And it was so that when they bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was girded with linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the horn. And it was so, as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, that Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of the Lord, and set it in its place, in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had made an end of offering the burnt offering and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, both to men and to women, to every one a cake of bread, and a cake made in a pan, and a sweet cake. So all the people departed, every one to his house. Then David returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David, and said, How did the king of Israel get him honor today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovered himself? And David said unto Michal, Before the Lord, who chose me above your father and above all his house, to appoint me prince over the people of the Lord, over Israel, before the Lord will I make merry, and I will be yet more vile than this. And I will be base in my own sight, and with the handmaids whom you have spoken of, with them will I get me honor. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child unto the day of her death. All right, let's go back to verse 1. Now, yesterday, we found out David had more sons, and children were born unto him, and God had mentioned that there was going to be a breaking point, and God's going to show you what's going to happen in that breaking point, and we're going to pick the story up now. There, verse 1. And David again gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. So David now has gathered up all the men of Israel, all these chosen men of Israel, the ones that are chosen, and these 30, those that are dedicated, and 1,000 for divine fulfillment. 2. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal, Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, whereon is called the name. even the name of the Lord of hosts, that sitteth upon the cherubim. So now, David and all the people that are with him here, these chosen men of Israel, these 30,000, have gone now from Baal, Judah, and Baal was a idol that they would make to worship, and this Baal means Lord. So he's gone up now from the lords of Judah to go get the Ark of God. And the Ark of God is that which represents that what contains his law, God's law. For that was what they put in the Ark, was the law of God. And it says here, whereupon is called the name. And this name of God, this holy name of God, that we don't speak, only between us and the Lord, not openly, that men know that they may abuse it or mock it. And they set the ark, 3, of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. So we'll remember this is where the ark has been for a long time here in this hill, this high place of Abinadab. And it's Uzzah and Ahio are the sons of Abinadab. And Abinadab means my father causes willingness. And Uzzah is the feminine word for strength, so it would be considered like the strength of a woman. And Ahio means to be brotherly. 4. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was in the hill, with the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. So they've put the ark upon the cart, this new cart that they've made just to pull the ark, and David and his men have gone to get it, and they've brought it out now, and Ahio, brotherliness, is going now before the ark of God. 5. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord with all manner of instruments made of cypress wood, and with harps, and with psalteries, and with timbrels, and with sistra, and with cymbals. So we're going to see now this cypress wood is, in the King James it says fir, and that would probably be a closer translation. It's going to mean an evergreen tree. These instruments of the evergreen tree is a form of that which is considered to shadow and become idolatry. So these evergreen trees are a symbolism of idolatry itself. And these instruments that were formed out of the woods that do symbolize this idolatry. 6. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. So now we've come to the threshing floor of Nacon, and the threshing floor is that place where they would gather the harvest, and there they would thresh it or beat it with a rod, whatever it required, to remove the grain from the shaft, or the hull, or the part that was not going to be used, and that would be blown away or cast in a fire, whichever type of harvest they was doing. And the grain would be gathered, and this is the threshing floor, that place where they would thresh out. And Uzzah has put forth his hand now to the ark of God, and we know the law says that no one's allowed to touch this but a Levite. 7. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. So Uzzah, this feminine strength, which would be in symbolism to the teachings of men in the latter end, has now put forth his hand to steady the law of God. And he is being used as an example here. And we're going to see God struck him dead because he's not allowed to touch the ark of God. He is not a Levite, and he has no business touching the law. And this is all the judgments for those that have gone against the law. And David was displeased, 8, because the Lord had broken forth upon Uzzah, and that place was called Perez Uzzah unto this day. Perez means the breaking or the breach of Uzzah. And what happened here? God destroyed this feminine strength, these teachings of men, when they put forth their hand, when they put forth their work to steady God's law, to add to it. They think they got something to do with it. This is the breaching point. This is the breaking point. This is what does it. This is what causes it. 9, and David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, how shall the ark of the Lord come unto me? So because God smote Uzzah, because God smote this feminine strength in the end, this David is scared of bring the ark of God. He says, how should it come unto me? The ark belonged to Israel, and Israel was supposed to make sure that they obeyed the law of God, and the earth would see this, and then know that which separated them from all the earth come of God. And if they would have been wise, they would have considered this, but this didn't happen. So God brought this plan around in the instead of. So he's going to cause the obedience through the judgments he sends upon us. So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And this verse 10. So now David's scared to take the ark any further after God has smote Uzzah. And so he takes the ark and he turns aside with it, and he goes into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite, or the Gitti. And these would be those of the place of the two wine presses. And Obed-Edom is the worker of red. Edom means red, and Obed is worker or servant or laborer. And Edom is red. It refers to the blood showing in the flesh. So, and that is what we got here. Obed, the worker of blood in the flesh. And the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom on all his house. So this 3 months is complete. The month is the darkness, or this period of time under the lesser light, or these teachings of men, or this devoted thing of idolatry which God has placed over all the world. 12, and it was told King David, saying, the Lord hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom, and all that pertaineth unto him, because of the ark of God. And David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom in the city of David with joy. So now David's left it there, and he's gone back home. And after a while, someone's come and said, hey, Obed-Edom, he's making out good because God's blessing his whole house. And now David's gone to get the ark of the covenant and bring it home with joy. 13, and it was so, when they that bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. And what we see here now is David is when he got the ark of God, and every time they go 6 steps, they stop and they sacrificed an ox and the fatling. And a fatling is going to be that which is well fed. These are sacrificed or given over unto God, and this 6 is the labor of man. Once again, 6 days shalt thou do thy work. And these paces represent progress. 14, and David danced before the Lord with all his might. And David was girded with a linen ephod. So now David is going before the ark of God, and he's dancing just as hard as he can. He's dancing with all of his might. And David's girded with a linen ephod. Now, David's not a priest, and David, and this linen ephod is in symbolism of one who is of the priesthood, though they aren't wearing the full ephod of the priesthood, they are wearing the linen ephod, and this shows that they are one who is in training of the priesthood. So David and all his house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the horn. So now David and all of Israel, all the house of Israel that's with him, are going before the ark of God, and they're shouting and blowing the horns and music and all sorts of commotion. And it was so, as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, that Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out at the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. So now Michal, this one who is like God, has looked out the window, and she's seen David coming before the ark and dancing and beating on and playing all sorts of instruments, and it has caused her to despise him, in that the fact that she sees David as acting and playing the part of a fool, in the fact that he is making all this commotion before the ark of God. 17, and they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. So now they've went up and they've got the ark of God, and on their way back with it, God smote Uzal. Now they've brought the ark into the city of David, and they've placed it now in the midst of a tent that David's pitched for it. Is this the tent that it belongs in? I don't know. It's just a tent that David has pitched for it. I don't even know if they still got the tent of the meeting place. 18, and when David had made an end of offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. So now David has offered all these sacrifices and all these peace offerings. We'll remember Saul did this, and when he did this, when he made these sacrifices and offerings, Samuel said, "What have you done?" See, because in that day David is not a priest. He's not supposed to be making these sacrifices, and he's or these peace offerings. And he dealt, 19, among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, both to men and to women, to every one a cake of bread, and a cake in a pan, and a sweet cake. So all the people departed every one to his house. So now we're going to find here that it names this cake 3 times. It's the same cake. It's one cake. It's cake of bread, that which would represent the Word of God. Even this cake that's made in a pan that man has baked himself over an open fire, and it's a sweet cake. So it's been sugared and sweetened up, and he's give one to every one to his house, and one is the beginning. So now this is the beginning. 20. Then David returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How did the king of Israel get him honor today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of his handmaids, of the handmaids of his servants, and as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovers himself?" So now Michal, when David has returned home after all this festivity that they've had today, he goes to go home, and Michal, this daughter of Saul, who is like unto God, the daughter of the desired one, she comes out to meet David and says to him, "How did you make yourself look like a king today? You've uncovered yourself. You've made yourself look like a fool today in front of all these handmaids, the wives of your servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovers himself, or as maybe a drunken shows himself to be foolish." 21, and David said unto Michal, "Before the Lord, who has chosen me above your father, and above all his house, to appoint me prince over the people of the Lord, over Israel, before the Lord will I make merry." So David tells Michal now that God chose him to make him prince over all of Israel, and before him, before God, shall he make merry. 22, and I will be yet more vile than this, and will be base in my own sight, and with the handmaids whom you have spoken of, with them will I get me honor. So now David is telling Michal, "Oh, I'm going to do worse than this. I'll be vile by my own sight." So David's telling her, I'll be the judge of my vileness, and I'll do as I want. And with these handmaids whom you have spoken of, all these women whom you have of my servants, with them will I get me honor. So David said, with them shall I get me honor, or with them shall they look up to me. And these handmaids would represent these multitude of wives David will later take him to himself, this being those feminine teachings of men, how they would gather themselves to David. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child until the day of her death. And we'll remember, Michal is David's first wife. This is the one David gave the foreskins for. These circumcisions, David gave these foreskins for Michal. And he should be remembering the wife of his youth, this first wife. And this is going to be recalled, and we're going to find out that Michal is barren. She has no children. She shall not produce seed. And this has a significant meaning for the end time, because that is basically what's going to happen. All right, we're going to move on to chapter 7.